All right, let's talk about infrastructure. I know. Sounds a little dull, right? Concrete, pipes, power lines. But what if I told you we are smack in the middle of one of the biggest infrastructure shakeups in human history? Seriously, the invisible framework that holds up our entire lives is being totally rewritten. So today, we're going to dive in and explore the blueprint for the world of tomorrow.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Think about your day. You flip a switch, you turn on a tap, you drive over a bridge, and you don't think twice. That's the whole magic of infrastructure. It just works. It's the foundation of modern life. But here's the thing, that foundation, the one built a generation or two ago, is really starting to show its age. It's starting to crack. A D plus? I mean, come on. In school, that's a grade you definitely don't show your parents. For an entire country's critical systems, it's a massive flashing red light. And look, while this particular grade is for the US, this is not just an American problem. It is a global story. From Europe to Africa, the systems we all rely on are under some serious strain. And when you stop and think about it, it kind of makes sense why. So much of the stuff we use every single day was engineered for a completely different world, a world with a smaller population, a much more stable climate, and no internet. These were absolute marvels of the 20th century for sure, but they just weren't designed to handle the challenges of the 21st. So how in the world did we get here? Well, to understand where we're going, we first have to understand the old blueprint. Let's take a quick look at the model that really defined the last 100 years of how we built, well, everything. The old way of doing things was pretty straightforward. Power came from one giant plant. Water came from one huge reservoir. And everything was planned in its own little box, its own silo. The energy planners didn't talk to the transport planners, and they didn't talk to the water planners. It was rigid, it was all physical, and it was designed from the top down by a handful of experts. And that top-down approach, it had some really serious consequences. You had these planning models from the global north that were basically just copied and pasted into the global south, with very little thought given to local needs or culture. This one-size-fits-all approach, more often than not, ended up making inequality worse, not better. And that brings us to today. That old, rigid blueprint is now colliding head-on with three massive, simultaneous crises that are forcing us to completely rethink everything. This isn't just about patching up a few old roads anymore. It's about building for a completely new reality. First up, the climate crisis. We have to decarbonize our entire economy. That means shifting from a world powered by fossil fuels, like that smoking chimney, to one running on clean renewables, like those wind turbines. And just to give you a sense of the scale here, the US alone needs to ramp up its renewable energy growth more than 6 times its previous rate, and do it in just 15 years. It's a staggering task. Second, the digital revolution. At the very same time we're rewiring our physical world for green energy, we're also building a whole new digital one. And this is so much more than just faster internet. It's a vast parallel infrastructure of fiber-optic cables, massive data centers, and 5G networks that, frankly, our entire modern economy now completely depends on. And third, there's the money problem. A funding gap so enormous, it's hard to even comprehend. This number you're looking at, $1 trillion. That is the additional investment that emerging markets need every single year just to get on track for net zero. And to make that even more real, check out this number, $108 billion. That's the estimated funding gap for Africa alone every year. So yeah, it's crystal clear that the old ways of funding this stuff just aren't going to cut it. We need a new blueprint. Okay, so we've laid out the problems. They are huge, they're complex, but this is where it starts to get really exciting. Because all around the world, innovators are creating a brand new blueprint for the 21st century, and it's built on smarter finance, smarter technology, and smarter planning. And the shift in thinking here is just fundamental. We're moving from purely physical systems to a hybrid of physical and digital. We're going from siloed sectors to an integrated system where energy, transport, and data all work together. We're shifting from centralized to decentralized, and from brittle systems that break to resilient ones that can adapt. So, the trillion-dollar question, how do we pay for all this? Well, one of the most powerful new ideas is the green bank. Now, this isn't your regular bank. Think of it more like a specialized financial tool that's designed to pull private money into green projects. It steps in to make these projects less risky and way more attractive to big investors who might otherwise just stay on the sidelines. So how do they actually do it? Well, they use clever tools like loan guarantees to lower the risk for investors. They can bundle up tons of small projects like rooftop solar on hundreds of different homes and package them into one big investment that's attractive to a major firm. And they often lend directly to communities that traditional banks ignore. A fantastic example is the Connecticut Green Bank's Solar for All program. It helps low-income families get solar by looking at their utility payment history instead of their credit score. It's just brilliant.
Now let's talk about the tech. This might sound like it's straight out of science fiction, but it is very, very real. It's called the Urban Digital Twin. Basically, it's a living, breathing digital replica of an entire city. It connects to the real city through all kinds of sensors and data feeds, which creates this amazing virtual sandbox where planners can test out ideas before spending a single dollar on construction.
But a digital twin isn't just one thing. It actually evolves. It starts out as just a plan, a 3D model. Then it becomes a digital copy of what's already been built. But the real magic happens at level 3, the digital shadow. This is where real-time data starts flowing from the physical city into the virtual model. It lets planners see traffic flows, energy use, even flood risks as they are happening.
And this brings us to smarter planning. Take a look at this chart. Don't even worry about reading the details. The whole point is just the sheer complexity of it. This is a European roadmap for coordinating infrastructure planning. Every one of those colored lines is a different sector: electricity, gas, transport, water, IT, and they all need to be developed in sync. This is the end of siloed thinking. The future has to be planned as one big integrated system. And that brings us to the most important part of this whole story. Because for all the talk of finance and technology, none of it matters one bit if we forget who we're building it for. The goal isn't just to build a smarter world, it's to build a better and more just world for people. This quote is such a powerful reminder of what can happen when we get it wrong. Infrastructure is never neutral. Decisions about where to build a highway, where to put a power plant, or where to invest in new transit, these things can either heal old divides or create brand new ones. They have profound consequences for the most vulnerable people among us. This is why the new blueprint has to be designed for what's called a just transition. So what does that mean? It means actively working to fix the health problems caused by pollution in low-income neighborhoods. It means making sure that when the economic boom of green energy comes, the jobs and the savings benefit everyone, not just the wealthy. And maybe most important of all, it means bringing community voices to the planning table from day one. So let's recap the journey we've been on. We started with the cracking foundation of the 20th century. We faced that triple threat: climate change, the digital revolution, and a massive funding gap. But then we saw these new blueprints starting to emerge, smarter, greener, and more integrated than anything we've ever seen before. We have the technology. We are inventing the financial tools. The plans for a more resilient, more sustainable, more connected world, they are right here on the drawing board. But having the blueprint isn't enough. The ultimate test of this great transformation won't be how technologically advanced our cities become. It will be how just and how equitable they are. That's the real challenge, and that's the question we want to leave you with today.